Hello, I'm Liselle Sambury and welcome to the best books I read in February video. How I do these videos, in case you haven't seen my one for January, is I force myself to pick 3 favorites of the month to talk about at a length, and then at the end I will go into some honorable mentions. So these are books that I also really liked, even though they weren't in my top 3 that I would recommend. And that is how the video will go. I read 17 books this month, which was shocking to me, but I really got into reading more graphic novels, and so that I think really switched things up. I think I read 7 graphic novels this month. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So I'm gonna get into talking about my top 3 books for February, the top 3 best books I read, and I'm going to start with Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This is an adult sci-fi horror. I read this via audiobook from Libro FM, so I used my Libro FM credit to purchase it so I could listen to it on audio. This is about it's being comped as Titanic meets The Shining, and so it's about this crew of kind of ship salvagers. They're supposed to go out in space and kind of, I believe, check on what they could salvage and salvage ship-wise. And Claire is their team leader, but they come across this ship because of a distress signal, and it's called the Aurora, and it was this huge luxury spaceship, but it disappeared a long time ago, and everyone was presumed dead. So they find this ship and they realize if they go onto the ship and they take things that can prove that they saw the ship, then they'll get salvager rights and they'll own the ship, and so then they can sell it and make a ton of money, which is really important because Claire, the team leader, she's being laid off, and so she has no job to go back to, and she needs to start up her life. A lot of them aren't really well off, and so this money could really change their lives, and so they decide to go onto the ship. But when they go onto the ship, shit starts going down. So I absolutely love this story. I think what's really good about it, I think if you're like me and you're really interested in character-based stories, even though it's a sci-fi, it's very sci-fi light. It's they have this sci-fi background and world. And in the first chapter, there's some more technical terms, but it's really about the characters in the book. It's really about Claire's journey. You know, she's had some traumatic things that have happened in her past that are now affecting her while these things are happening on the ship. And it's just the things on the ship are super creepy. It's very insidious. It's very much what is going on. And it's what is going on with Claire as a character, but also what is going on with this ship and what's happening, what's going on with these other people, and how are they going to get out of this situation. And yeah, so I think if you are a horror fan, it's really great from that. And I think if you are not necessarily someone who's into sci-fi, I would still really give it a try, because I think it is really a very heavy character-based book, and I just absolutely loved it, and I'm really excited about seeing more horror from this author. The next book I want to talk about is A Cruel and Fated Light by Ashley Shuttleworth. This is the sequel to the amazing A Dark and Hollow Star that came out in 2021. This is a young adult urban fantasy. I got a physical arc for blurbing purposes. And I will say that Ashley's my friend, but I still love their books, and so I'm gonna talk about it. And this one is going to be coming out in May 2022. I'll put links below for pre-ordering if you're interested in pre-ordering, which I think you should. But anyway, so if you haven't read the first book is about 4 queer fae teens. Arlo is our main character. She's Ironborn. That means she's half fae, half human, and there ends up being these series of murders of Ironborn teenagers, which is of course of concern to her. And so she teams up with a Fury, Nausicaa, who's on the cover here, and two boys from the Seelie Summer Court pictured here, and they work to solve the mystery together. And so the second book is picking up shortly thereafter the first book, and what happens here is that Arlo goes to visit the Seelie Summer Court, where Vahan and Aurelian live, so two boys on the cover. But you know, Vahan's mother is kind of known as a bit of a cruel tyrant queen, and she's in direct opposition to the court where Arlo lives, and so there's a lot of concern about Arlo going and staying there, and about if something is going to happen to her and if it's in bad faith, that sort of thing. So what I absolutely love about this book is there's so much court intrigue and like court politics. Like, I love that sort of thing, like the scheming, the lies, the manipulation, the back and forth. Like, I absolutely adore things like that, and so it's so fun to get so much of that in this book. And of course it's within the, you know, within the Fae realm, so you know, it includes a lot of the fair folk. And what I also really loved about this sequel is that you got to see a lot more of the different kinds of fair folk versus just kind of like, you know, the high fae. Essentially, you got to see all sorts of different types, like sirens and like all types, and you got to see different places in the Fae world as well, whereas the first book is like very focused on Toronto, which I love, but it's also great to see different places. And the ships going on in this book, like if you're a person that loves to ship, like ships are being made, ships are being, you know, challenged, new potential ships are cropping up. So I absolutely love that, and the reveals are just like, I spent so much of this book trying to guess what was going to happen next and like what was going to be going on. And like, I guessed some, but some I like completely missed, but in the best way. Like, I just wasn't thinking the right way, but it was set up really well. And also what I love about this series is there's such fantastic layered world building, and it is going to be a 4-book series. And so like, there are so many things that happen in this book, but you can also feel the setup coming for newer books and like what's going to happen in the rest of the series, and that's really amazing. So yeah, absolutely love this book. I highly recommend you pick it up. Also recommend that you pick up the first book if you haven't. I'm not sure when the paperback is coming out. I will put down below information for when the A Dark and Hollow Start paperback is coming out if you'd rather get the paperback. And yeah, so highly recommend. The last top 3 book I want to talk about for February is Cherish Farah by Bethany C. Morrow. This is an adult horror, and I read this as an ebook, so I bought the ebook version. And oh my gosh, I was like, I have to say what the book is about before I can start gushing about it. So it's about 2 girls, so Cherish and Farah. So Cherish is a black girl. She's a teenager, and she was adopted by white parents, and they're very well off, and they live in this very affluent neighborhood, and they're very like concerned about, you know, considering that they are raising a black daughter. Like, the mother learns how to like cornrow and how to do wash days and things like that. And that's kind of their whole deal. And then Farah is her best friend. And so Farah, she lives with her biological parents. They were part of that affluent society, but they fell on hard times. And kind of Farah, who's used to that lifestyle, has kind of clung to her friend Cherish. She starts staying at their house. She wants to continue staying at their house infinitely, basically. She's trying to join their family and kind of distance herself from her own family. And so that's basically kind of like how I would describe the book. What I think is so amazing about this book is the constant insidious nature and dread of everything that is happening. So Farah's point of view, you only get her point of view. So Farah's point of view, she is a person that's very analytical, but you also constantly get the sense that something is kind of off with her. But because you're also reading from her point of view, it feels like something is off with everyone. Like, every interaction she has is so in depth, it's so like nuanced, there's so much to it, because that's the way that she thinks as a character. And she's kind of constantly planning for how she can cement herself in this family, how she can stay with them, how she can get away from her own family. And it's just like, I absolutely loved the writing style. It just like the whole time I was reading, I was like, something is wrong with everyone, and I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm waiting to figure out what is going on. I'm constantly second guessing and thinking about every interaction that she's having with people, which is the same thing that Farah is doing. So I find it like really skillful how being in her head like that starts to affect you as a reader, and you start to become as kind of analytical and paranoid as she is, because you are reading from her POV, and that's just the way that she thinks. I think this is a really good, it's got a really good slow dread buildup. And then the third act like goes completely bonkers, so, which is amazing in the most amazing way. And so to me, what I loved about it was having that like slow, insidious burn and lead up, and knowing that something was going to happen and something big was going to happen, and then having it finally happen. And so I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend it. I've been so excited about this book since Bethany Seymour announced that she was going to be releasing a horror from Black authors, more of it. I was so excited for it, and so I absolutely loved it, and I highly recommend it, and recommend that you check it out. Now for the honorable mentions. These are other books that I really read and enjoyed during February and that I would recommend, but just like rapid fire. So the first is Bloom. This was written by Kevin Panetta and illustrated by Savannah Ganusho. It is a young adult contemporary graphic novel. I read it as an ebook from the library. It's about two boys who are kind of lost in their lives and like trying to figure out where they want to land, and they both end up together at a family bakery. For one boy, that's his family's bakery that he's kind of like feeling forced to stay at, and for the other boy, he loves baking, and so he's gotten a job at this bakery. There's some falling in love, but what I really love about this graphic novel, like the family in it is so, like, I love the family story. It's so sweet, it's so beautiful and moving. Of course the romance is really cute, but I really enjoyed that these characters felt really realistic. They weren't perfect, they messed up, they made mistakes, they did things that were upsetting or like cruel or like not right, and they had to come together and figure things out. And so I really loved that about the graphic novel. The next one is Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This is a young adult horror graphic novel. I also got this as an ebook from the library. They're all gorgeous. They all have gorgeous art, the graphic novels I'm mentioning, but this one was really beautiful and like haunting, and it's a series of short stories. They have the feeling of like dark fairy tales or like folk tales. Like that's definitely kind of the vibe that I got from them. And yeah, I thought those were like really beautiful. I highly recommend checking that out. And the last graphic novel I'm going to mention in the honorable mentions section is Anya's Ghost by Vera Broskal. This is about a girl who immigrated from Russia, and she's kind of grappling with like her culture, which she was bullied for earlier on, and like body image issues and things like that. And then she meets this ghost who tries to help her improve her life. But of course, you know, some sinister things happen, some creepy things happen, some horror things happen. I would say if you're like a person that's like easily scared by like horror books and things like that, I think this book is like a good one for that, because it's like, it's got some creepy elements, but I didn't find it to be like gory or like super like upsetting in that way. So I think if you're wanting to dip your toe into horror but you're a little bit like scared of things, like that would be a good graphic novel for you. And then the final book, well, the only book that I want to talk about on my honorable mentions is I Am Still Alive by Kate Alice Marshall. This is about a girl who goes to stay with her dad who lives in the Canadian wilderness, and then he dies and their cabin is set on fire and she is alone with their dog and she has to survive. And yes, I think this is a YA. I would call it like a suspense or a thriller, but maybe more of a suspense. And I purchased this in paperback. So I think this is like, I think if you like survivalist stories, like this is really fantastic. That's what I really loved about it. And like at the midpoint, things really start ramping up. Things really start ramping up and like kicking into high gear, and I really love that about the book, and like seeing all the different survivalist techniques and everything, things like that. I am going to talk about the fate of the dog quickly. It will be a spoiler, so if you don't want any spoilers of any kind, this is the end of the video essentially. I'm just gonna wrap it up so you can stop and you can leave and go about your business. But if you're the sort of person like I am, where you love to know about the fate of the dog before you head into a book with a dog, I'm going to spoil that for you right now. So I will give you a moment to leave now. And so I just want to say the dog does die in this book. The dog dies at the end after you love him. So if that's I just like to say that because I'm that sort of person where like if I can know about the fate of the dog beforehand, I want to know about the fate of the dog. I'm still gonna read the book and I still really enjoyed this book, but it's just like a peace of mind thing. And yeah, I know I don't do that for people, but it's how I feel and it's my channel and my video, so I'm just gonna make that clear. And that's it for this best books I read in February video. Please comment down below to share your favorite books that you read in February so we can get recommendations going and all of that. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!